What's up, everybody? It's Sergio Nazaro on Vroom Vroom Veer with Jeff. Hey, listen, if you want to get your mind blown, make sure you tune into my episode. I promise that you're going to leave a changed individual after this episode.
Andy's on fire. I can see the flames. All right. Thank you, sir. That was perfect. I'm going to hit stop and I'll be right back.
Are you ready to thoughtfully steer away from your revved up, frenzied, and far too often scripted life? Then welcome to Vroom Vroom Veer with Jeff Smith, where he guides you down the road differently traveled by sharing unique experiences with guests who have managed to shift away from a life stuck on cruise control and veered their way into a more authentic and fulfilling one in all sorts of interesting and kind of remarkable ways. Get ready to Vroom Vroom Veer with your differently traveled road chauffeur, Jeff Smith.
Anna Chippa, thank you so much for being on Vroom Vroom Veer. Welcome to the show. How's it going?
Very good. How about yourself?
I am feeling well. I think I haven't counted the days, but I'm currently on an alcohol break. I don't know if you've ever had alcohol in your life, but it's nice. It's fun until
maybe a time or two.
You might have had a little alcohol sometime. Yeah. So I just got done with a vacation and drank way too much. So whenever you wake up and you feel like, wow, I have like an 8-day hangover right now. Icky. So I feel better, haven't had a beer in a while. Yeah. So that's good.
Yeah. Kind of reset.
Yes.
Have a little cleanse, a little reset. Yeah. I get what you mean.
What I say is I'm going to take a break for at least 30 days and then go as long as I can. Right.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go ahead and be super honest. There was a buddy came in town and I hadn't seen him forever. And we went out and had lunch and I had a beer. Didn't have more than one beer, but I did have a beer. Outside of that, I've been good. But anyway, I digress. So you are. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, I interrupted.
I was going to say, I'm all about tangents.
Tangents are great, right?
Yes. Yeah.
All the fun shit happens in tangents. Sorry, I swear.
You're fine. Swearing is condoned. Just go deep in the weeds on stuff and things like that. And I totally feel you in terms of like resetting and cleansing. And what I tell people too, it's like, you know what, like having a beer or whatever, that's okay. Like enjoy life, have fun. And I'm all about like intuition, right? Like just, it's okay to not be super strict. And that's just not how to enjoy life, right? It's like, let's just, have a beer, have wine, whatever it may be. But obviously, like, don't have it go to where it's like a very unhealthy amount, right?
Correct.
Then that's a little bit concerning. But
correct.
I get what you mean. So
I'm going to go ahead and throw in now, because I've been listening to Tim Ferriss talk about this for a long time. And he's got, doctors and people that don't drink. I think we've come to a consensus. If you're really serious about your health, there is a certain number of alcoholic beverages that are best for your health. And that would be 0. Right? So save that and say, okay, if you're not going to be 0, just be mindful, figure out like, okay, maybe I can have 2 at once and then maybe not every day.
It's like, it's everything in moderation.
Exactly.
Right.
It's, don't go crazy.
And I understand. Right. And it's not just like with alcohol and stuff. It's like everything, right? Like you don't want to do like too much work, or you don't want to do too much working out, or you don't want to have too much alcohol, whatever it may be.
Right.
And I think that also goes on the other side too, right? Like people who just restrict themselves, that in itself can be a very dangerous thing, because that's like it could be like a negative mindset of like, oh my gosh, like if I don't follow this, shame on me. And then it gets into this bad cycle. Right. Yes, the shame cycle. So there's, I say that there's like a pendulum. And oftentimes when people, you hear about like the yo-yo diets, right? Like people who go swing all the way to one side of the pendulum, have this yo-yo diet, and then they swing all the way to the other side to the point where there's no consistency. So it's, hey, how do we actually get more back to center and balance in more areas of your life than just, health and fitness and things like that, so that you can enjoy it. soak everything in. So yeah, like I said, tangents. So I'm all about them. I'm all about them.
I remind me later. I have a story about shame that I want to share and get your insights on. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Oh, I love talking about shame.
Yeah, and I got a really good story. I think you're going to dig it.
Okay.
Okay. So before we forget, let's say your website. So SummerSOULsticeCoach.com, and I'm going to spell it out. So it's summer and then the word soul, and then so SOULSTICE coach.com. So all strung together. Did I get it right? Summer, SUMMER, SOULSTICE coach, COACH.com. I really suck at reading, don't I? Man, I need a better job.
That is okay. I tell people, I'm like, think of the summer solstice, like, June 21st, like that thing, but then add a U in it. So SOULSTICE.
Perfect.
Summer coach.com.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about what you're most excited about in your summer solstice coaching dealio.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, God. So I've been, when you were asking the question, like, how are you? I'm like, I'm busy, but blessed. But very blessed kind of thing. And I actually just celebrated my 1-year business anniversary in terms of going full time with it a couple weeks ago.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. So I'm really looking forward to kind of what that's going to look like year 2. Now that I'm built up a little bit more, I've kind of gone into the swing of things and figuring out ways to work smarter and not harder. And allowing, I talk about this a lot with folks about how to kind of like embrace this divine femininity, like working as a woman business owner in my business, because it's so different, like, corporate America, working 9 to 5, things like that. It's a total mind shift. It's a total paradigm shift. So just learning how to work smarter and not harder, and being able to serve people within the business is just like, I'm really, really excited for that, and just what's to come for this year in general.
I can tell you're lit up.
Super excited.
Yeah.
Super easy. I'm like, and like, how could we not? Like, this is just such a wonderful life that we live, right? Despite hard times and struggles, I'm like, just being grateful and just so excited for so many things. So it's hard work, I tell people, especially as a business owner, but I'm like, it's awesome. Like, I'm living out my passion and living out my purpose. And I love that, and being able to connect with people and that kind of stuff too. So
that's awesome. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's
I
amazing.
appreciate it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
A little jelly.
I love it.
Color me jelly bean over here. Okay. So, all right. So this is Vroom Vroom Veer. That means we got to go back in time. And we got to talk about, you grew up in Ohio, right?
Yep. Small town.
Yeah.
Cleveland, Ohio. Yep. Mm-hmm.
All right. So I grew up in Michigan. So that means you kind of have to hate me a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you go to like University of Michigan?
No.
Okay. It's okay. I didn't go to Ohio State, so it's okay.
Okay. So we can be friends.
So we can be kind of civil. Right? We can be kind of civil.
It's weird. Like, I know there's that Big Ten rivalry, but like other sports, there's not a rivalry. It's weird. Right?
No, not as much. Not as much. Just honestly, it's just
Ohio
college
State
football
and Michigan, right? I think that's it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ohio State. Yeah, Ohio State and Michigan. Yeah, because even like in professional football, it's like for us. I mean, we're the Cleveland Browns, so we hate the Steelers. I don't know why, but it's like we hate
they're
the
your
Steelers.
rival.
That's our big thing. Yeah, I'm like, there's no rhyme or reason. Like, it's fine.
Rivalries are fun, so just let it be.
They are.
As long as you know who. There are certain teams that take it a little bit more seriously. I never. So I'm a Packer fan, even though I grew up in Michigan, right? So we were closer to Green Bay. So as a Packer fan, we got a lot of rivals.
Yeah.
They just keep adding on, right?
Right.
Because we've been around forever. But our historic rival is Bears, right? Chicago Bears.
The Bears.
Okay. Right. Okay. So I have a lot of Bear fan friends, and they're almost always cool. But there's a line you can't cross, right? Even when the Bears suck, I'm not allowed to say that. I've accepted that now. I've accepted that now.
Like, it's fine.
Yeah. I can say you guys are having a tough year. Yeah. That's okay.
Like,
but I can't use the S word on a Bears. Can't do that because they'll want to punch me.
It's like, God, not gonna say anything nice. Just don't say it all.
Exactly. Where like Minnesota fans will see me in my Packer gear, right? And then another rival, they'll come up and say,
I was gonna say Minnesota's a big one for Packers, right?
Yeah. And they'll just come up and say, well, Vikings suck this year. You said it. I didn't.
Sometimes that's the way it goes, right?
It's just fun, just have fun.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're growing up in and around Cleveland, or so outside of Cleveland?
Yeah, a little bit, like 40 minutes outside of downtown Cleveland, on the east side.
Okay, nice.
Yep, small little town.
So what was high school like for you? This is where you get into the bullying thing, right?
Yes. Yeah. High school was very interesting. I'll even pull it back. I'll go one step further back into middle school, like elementary school.
Right.
Yeah. And in there, I felt very much like myself, like very outgoing, extrovert, very silly. Like I would be in the cafeteria, literally singing, screaming happy birthday. And the nun would like come up to me. She's like, Anna, stop. Like, what are you doing? Kind of thing.
Private Catholic school. Is that what? Yeah.
Yeah, it was for grade school. It was preschool through 8th grade.
Wow.
And that just, I felt very, very in my elements. Like I just kind of knew who I was. But then in high school, I transitioned. I moved to a new town. I was in a public high school, right, where these students, again, very small town where students have been knowing each other since kindergarten.
Right.
So coming into this, and when I say small, I mean like graduating class of 110 for a public high school. Small. Yeah. So very small. Everyone knows everyone, that kind of thing. And in that, I lost myself a lot. I completely flipped the script. Like I was very introverted. I was more observant, like definitely not myself. And, there was a lot of, call it what it is, like bullying, right? Sure. Where, I would have people like within my soccer team, like say mean things about me. I'm like, but I don't understand why, like what is going on? And I think a lot of that for me, like I took that to heart and I attached to those negative words as like, that's who I am. That's my identity. I even had, one girl, she was on my soccer team and I was talking to like a boy, right? Cause like high school, whatever. And then there was another girl, right? There was another girl who liked him. And this girl, right? She literally said to the girl who liked him, or I'm sorry, she said to the guy, like, I don't even know why you would like Anna. Like this other girl is so much like prettier and smarter and funnier. Like just all this kind of stuff. I'm like,
wow.
Oh, like,
Ow.
And it's just, ouch, right? Yeah. Ouch. And I think in high school, again, I took those words to heart and really, it really just kind of impacted my identity. I didn't really know like who I was or how I wanted to show up. And, I also didn't know how to deal with the sadness. I think a lot of times I, just went upstairs in my room and was just like grinding on homework. I was like, you know what, like I might as well find safety and work. And then also, like there were times as well where I would just be so sad where I literally like cried myself, listened to my iPod, cried myself to sleep. You know what I mean? And just stayed up there for hours and hours, just like crying and shaming. I'm sure we'll talk about shame, but like shaming myself. Like, how am I the way that I am? Like, why am I like this kind of thing? Why does nobody like me?
So that's a serious culture shock going from private school. Was that an all girl school too?
No, it was co-ed. And I had a graduating class. It was small also. Okay. Really well-rounded people, about like 40 or so in a graduating class.
Okay. That's tiny.
Still like small to small. But it was just very different. It's not even, private to public. I don't even know it was that
Just
but
being the
honestly,
new
it's just
girl,
like,
basically. Yeah.
yeah,
That's hard.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just interesting. I was like, I don't really know where I'm finding my mold or my fit. And again, I think it was also just like the people who I was connecting with. I think in my private school, I have 3 of my best friends from there. Like, we're all in each other's weddings. Yeah. Like, I'm going to Cleveland in like next month to celebrate.
That's
actually like a month from today.
pretty rare and amazing right there.
Yeah. And we all like, lived in separate cities. We're all in separate states,
Sure.
Just all this kind of stuff. But high school, that wasn't for me like that. And for some people it is, which I'm like, that's awesome. That's great. But for me, I'm like, I didn't find my people there, and that's okay. But I think I learned a lot about myself and what I was ready. What kind of like when I transitioned into college, that next chapter of my life of kind of hitting my, a lower bottom. I wouldn't call it rock bottom, but a lower bottom in high school, to where in college, I was like, I want to get back to myself. Like, I kind of know who I am, and I'm ready to revive that personality in Anna.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Now, I feel bad for you now, because like when I was going through school, right? Like, I was one of those kids that knew everybody from kindergarten.
No, and that's okay.
No, I was still a nerd, right? But I had my crew, right? At least I had my crew of people that also got picked on and bullied. But we had been going through it, right? So it wasn't our first rodeo. Kindergarten, I mean, we got so close that we were bullying each other. That's a thing guys do, Right. But now, as you say all of that, right, I feel like I wish I would have been a little bit nicer to the new people that come in, say, look at her. She's really having a rough time, right? Because we had very few new people come in, because we were small town Michigan, right? So, and we always knew, like, oh, there she is, right?
Right. Like,
who are you? Right. Yeah. Who are you? Right. Yeah.
I've never met you before in these small walls.
Yeah. So let me say the thing about shame real quick, and then we'll move on to college.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So I always wondered what was up with shame insofar as where does that come from? Because it seemed like it was like a learned thing. Does that make sense? It was like, it's not something yet, like that happy person before they got the high school, right? Didn't know much about shame at that point, right? Didn't really have a reason. Well, you probably had, you weren't shameless. God, no. Right. But it wasn't like people weren't like actively shaming you, right?
I mean, I will say, because this is kind of what I do coaching in, actually, with shame, is that in a lot of these pains that happen in our life, it roots down to 3 different, I call them like 3 different triggers. It's like either shame, rejection, or neglect.
Okay.
And I could dive in and talk about those, but regardless, any of those types of triggers, they actually stem from our childhood.
Right.
So like even younger than middle school.
Oh yeah,
right?
totally younger.
3, 4, 5 years old, because we're absorbing, our environment and what's going around in our family. We're like a sponge.
Yeah.
So
you're getting programmed on default mode, basically.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's almost like it's a learned behavior in a sense, because this, whatever your mom or your dad may have, said to you, told you, your brain took that as a belief system to start believing as a young kid, even if it was just something really small. And then the pain kind of manifests. Sure. And that's really where shame could take root and just start growing and growing. So, and I think with shame, and we could talk about this more, but it was a learned behavior that manifested and grew, and it showed in different areas of my life, like not just, in middle school, but also like in high school, college. Yeah, exactly. And you don't realize it until you start going through inner healing and you're like, wait, let's actually identify it. Like, let's actually like take the elephant, like call the elephant out in the room, right? Like, what is this actually?
Yeah.
But it's not really an elephant because it likes to be a little bit secretive. It likes to, it likes to be a little secretive.
It's like a magic transforming elephant that can be as small as a mouse kind of thing.
Yes, exactly.
But it is
turns
an
into
elephant.
A chameleon.
Yes.
Yeah. So it likes to be a little bit tricky.
I did this job. It was like a temp job. So I was doing IT shit at Inglewood Elementary. Well, Inglewood School District. So all levels. Yeah. So middle school, high school. There was this elementary class that I just happened to be there. And I was working on the computers in the classroom. And I want to say this was like second or third grade, right? Really young kids, right? And I liked this teacher. She was one of my teachers that I liked and respected. Yeah. And they got ready. She was getting the kids ready to go parade in front of parents. Okay. Yeah. You remember how you did this when you were a kid?
Oh yeah.
And she's giving them the pre-march parade briefing. Like, okay, now when all the parents see you and you're in line, make sure you're not scratching your butt because that would cause you shame. And I went, oh wow. That's where it came from, right? So adults keep telling you what would make you feel shame. And you go, oh, okay. So scratching your butt in front of people, that's bad. Yes. Oh, so all these things aren't necessarily bad, right? we don't necessarily want to take our pants off in public. I get that. But I was just that's like, fair. Like, oh, okay. See, so this is not like a malice thing. It's like we add a lot onto that, right? About like every time you do something bad, you should feel this shame thing, right? And that's a loaded word to me, right? It says, not only did you screw up, but you need to be punished for it.
Yeah.
Right? And we start doing that to ourselves.
We do. And I would even take it a step further too. It's not even just like bad in being punished. I think there's like, I think that's one side of the coin, but there's another side of the coin. And this is where it falls into like type A perfectionist stuff.
Okay. Right.
Oh, well, I did good, but I need to do better. So that's deficit and feeling like you're never enough.
Oh, right.
So that's
right.
the whole other side of it.
Yeah.
And that same kind of thing, it could be very self-induced in an unhealthy way, because I think there are good things to, hey, like, don't do this in public. Like, hey, like that kind of stuff, because that's good, right? You don't want to pull down your pants like in public. That's probably good, right?
Well, if you do it, charge.
Yeah. Exactly.
Hey, this guy's just giving it away for free.
Yeah, exactly. Here we go. Here we are. But I think there are some things about what kind of expectations are realistic versus unrealistic. And a lot of where shame likes to sneak in are those unrealistic expectations that we think are realistic.
Yeah. I think you and I went through something similar on this whole topic. Because like I said, I never was type A, right? So I look at type A people as like, you just can't achieve enough, right? Like if you're Obama, you're like, well, now what do I do, right? Like, now I have to go be a famous actor and be like Arnold Schwarzenegger is like the best example of where type A takes you. It's like it can take you to the top of several ladders. But I'm sure there's downsides, right? But what I wanted to get into was like this idea of being perfect. Right? Yeah. That spun me down into my darkest day, right? Like this idea that you get from school, like somebody like God is keeping score and going, oh yeah, you're not getting into heaven anymore. You've just crossed this imaginary barrier and you're below threshold. So have a nice time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like literally a checklist. Like, what's your grade?
I've screwed up too many times, and now I can't make it anymore. Right. That led me into depression / suicide attempts. So that was the kind of thing that like I had to learn to unlearn. Right. That. Yeah. Like, so if you're a Christian, you gotta weigh out, right? You just say you're sorry and go to church.
In a sense, right?
I'm joking.
In a sense, right?
If it were that easy.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
I think that's really the beautiful thing, like that there is a place where God the Father like does love you and does forgive you. But I think that there's like, we have our own barrier, which is ourselves. It's like sometimes we feel as if we can't even accept like that forgiveness and love and grace because we're judging ourselves so hard, and we're judging others as a result so hard. So yeah, and it's crazy, right? And I think I don't know. I think some people like they'll either be so hard on themselves where they don't even they can't even accept the forgiveness, or they try to just bypass everything and just get forgiveness. Like, oh, okay, well, I'm fine, so I'm going to be forgiven. It's fine, right? I'm like, no,
you have to do some work.
Yeah, I'm like, you have to avoid, or like you have to actually address like this elephant, right? Or the elephant who turns into a mouse kind of thing, because it can be very sneaky, right?
Totally.
So there's just so many layers and dimensions to kind of shame where it pops up, and it definitely feeds into that perfectionism where, and this is something I coach on a lot with my clients, especially because one, I've gone through it myself, but then two, it's like a psychological therapeutic thing as well. It's like it's very much rooted in therapy, but a lot of what shame and perfectionism kind of tie one and one together.
Right.
And it's, I feel like I need to perform to receive love, that I'm not good enough, all that kind of stuff. And actually shame is like also kind of nestled into rejection. Rejection's like one of the big ones. And that's like, I don't feel rejection. As if I'm like
I have a good story for rejection.
Oh yes. Oh,
I have more comments.
I love stories.
Okay, story. Okay, I'll do story first.
Yes.
But don't let me forget this other thing there was this thing about like okay, let me do this first or else I'll lose it.
Yeah.
Remind me to do the story, okay?
Tangents.
Tangents.
Go for it.
Okay, so this one a college professor who taught like Speech 101 when I was in Hawaii in the Air Force. Okay. So this is way back in the day.
Cool.
Yeah. So
Hawaii Air Force,
I know, right?
Cool.
So
love that.
Circa like 90 to 94, somewhere in that. Yeah. So anyway, he tells me this story about this meditator guy. Don't really remember the whole story. Is sitting on a beach, right? Watching sunrise.
Yeah.
And meditating. And he hears this voice in his head. And the voice says, "We are not here to know, compare, or judge."
That's so true. It's
So of course, I know, right? So of course, when he tells me this, I'm like 20, maybe 21, right? Yeah. And I go, okay. That was basically how I took that. I was like,
cool. All right.
Okay.
Awesome.
Good story.
Sweet.
Right.
But
oh my God. Like flash forward, I started applying that to everything in my life. Right. Am I trying to know something right now? Right. Yeah, I am trying to know something. Can I know this? Probably not. This may be unknowable. Maybe not. Maybe
That's
I can.
True.
Maybe some things we just don't know. Right. So.
Right. Yeah. Uncertainty is definitely out there.
Am I comparing myself to something? Oh, okay. That might be a trouble thing because I'm not supposed to do that. And then the judging thing is that's kind of obvious. I like not judging. Just say, okay, let's back up because who am I to judge?
Right.
I am absolutely nobody to judge. Anyway.
And
go ahead.
I know one of the things we were talking about too is, a little bit about, the Christian faith and whatnot. And I think one of the things that was really pivotal in my inner healing process, because again, I dealt with a lot of like shame, self-hatred, perfectionism. I kind of hit those categories. And one of the things when I was learning is that, if God doesn't judge you, if God is all forgiving despite everything that you've done, then who are you to judge other people?
Amen.
And I was like, oh,
right?
Including yourself. I'm
right.
like, oh my gosh. And then when I was going through my inner healing journey too, one of the things I learned is that, hurt people. So when we go vroom, vroom, veer, right, we go all the way back to when we were talking about high school stuff. One of the things I learned is, rather than to hold bitterness and resentment, it was this mindset shift of, hey, these people, they're operating from a place of pain. They're operating feeling like they're missing a core need or desire. And because of that, they feel the need to judge or to shame other people, because that's probably how they received love in their life. Right.
Yes.
So I think for me, it was like, okay, I could break down this bitterness and resentment and just have a tender heart and forgive them, just like the Father would forgive us. Right. And it's like, how can I have compassion? Man, this person is just they're dealing with their own pain and they did the best that they could at that time. And having that sort of thing. And again, with myself, how I look at myself, I did the best that I could at this time, just having that lift up. And comparison is such a trap too. Could talk about that, but
talk about a tangent.
A tangent on a tangent, right? Comparison is such a trap. It's such a trap. And what you were saying with certainty as well. That's where overthinking can step in, because when we're worrying about the future or we're holding on to the past, that's where we start to overthink. So again, it's how do you find that presence? How do you find that centeredness so that you can appreciate the past and focus on the present to change the future? It's one of my mottos I use in my business, because I'm just such a big believer in it.
Love it.
All the things.
Okay.
All the things.
Excellent tangent. So I remember now my rejection story. So feel free to interrupt as inspired.
Love it.
Okay.
Perfect.
So imagine I am 18 or 19. I'm about 100 pounds lighter. I have hair and I'm good looking, right? So I have a girlfriend. I'm in Japan and I'm in the Air Force. And I get orders to go to Hawaii. So this is before I get to Hawaii, right? So the first thing I think of is, how am I going to break up with my girlfriend? Because obviously I'm not getting married. I'm 19, right? And I like her, but she's not coming to Hawaii, right? And I'm leaving in 8 months, right? So that's in the back of my mind, but I'm not in any kind of hurry, right? I'm just thinking, I have a breakup in my future, right? So I'm thinking about
it's coming.
It's coming. I'm going to have to deal with that, right? So then we go out on a date and she immediately starts crying. Right. And I'm like, crying with her. Right. I'm crying with her and I don't know why. Right. So then through I don't speak Japanese. She doesn't speak English, but I've got a book. Right. We get to this thing where she's pregnant and it's not mine, but we have to break up.
Okay.
I don't know if any of that was true. That's not the point. The point was she dropped me off. I got in my car and I went home and I was bawling the whole time. Bawled out, crying, right? Because I got dumped. And getting dumped always hurt. Always hurts.
Of course.
Always hurts.
Of course.
And it wasn't until a couple hours later, I went and told my buddy that I got dumped, and he went, "You were trying to think of a way to break up with her." I went, "Oh, right." She did me a favor, didn't she? Doesn't matter. I still had to go through that emotion of rejection.
Yeah. It's hard. I mean, especially breakups. That's when people think about rejection first, are breakups. It's it hurts your heart, especially if you were emotionally tethered to someone. It makes it even harder, right? It's I'm not being accepted. I'm not being liked by this person.
Right. Yeah.
So, and especially in a case where it wasn't expected or that wasn't coming up, those feelings only weigh more on a person of like,
true.
Oh, this person like doesn't understand me. Like, I don't understand. What did I do wrong? Like, was it my fault? You know? And then because of that, people start to try to people please or change their behaviors to get acceptance or liking from another person, as opposed to just being their authentic selves and knowing that the right person is going to come who will appreciate all of those qualities. And, and it's normal. Like those kind of things, people pleasing and all that kind of stuff is very, very normal to have. But I tell people, is again, what I focus a lot in my coaching is, you know, those feelings of rejection. Like, I love that you took the time to just like process and grieve some of those things, because oftentimes people don't. Oftentimes people try to like resort to another person, right? Like hookup culture, go to somebody else to get that acceptance or love.
I got to get the taste of this shit out of my mouth. Yes.
Right, exactly. Like, cleanse my palate. Right. But it's not cleansing the palate. It's only adding more shit onto the palate. It's like, right?
Yes.
That's a whole cycle within itself.
Avoidance, basically avoiding feeling that grief, basically.
Exactly. And it's so important of, okay, this feeling, it is hard, it hurts, but how can you come to it, like nurture it and meet it with a lot of compassion and love that has been missing for so long. And that's what I focus on a lot in my coaching with people is, okay, these deficits, these needs of like being accepted and loved, like, how can we rewrite that? Like, let's rewrite that belief to know and feel and believe you are accepted and loved, and actually unlock that's already inside of you. There's just so many different barriers and weeds in the way. We just need to clean out the weeds. We need to like be gardeners and clean it out, right? Mesh it out. So yes, but it's such a big thing. Rejection it's huge, and it pops up in multiple areas of our life, especially with social media these days. Talk about liking, comparing, accepting. Oh gosh. Like,
that's kind of like the purpose of this show is to, you know, everybody's human, right? And it's not always, you know, like champagne on a boat, right? It's
exactly. It's not.
Life is not a party, right?
Dandelions and daisies. No, it's not.
Nobody,
it's hard.
Nobody posts the ugly shit on Facebook, right?
No. The highlight. I know, it's all about the highlight reel.
Exactly.
It's all about the highlight
Let's
reel.
look at our sizzle reel.
Exactly. I'm like, what's actually going on in your life? You know, like people say, oh, how are you? You know, oh, good. How are you? Okay.
Right.
But actually, how are you? Right.
And
I think that's
nobody wants
the conversation.
To know. Right.
Well, and you know, that's the funny thing is people think like, I shouldn't share my story because people aren't going to like the ugly side of me, or people aren't going to accept it, or they don't even want to face that for themselves. Right. But I tell people, honestly, we're more similar than not.
Totally.
We're actually
everybody struggles.
Yeah, everyone struggles. We're not alone. We're facing these same pains and triggers. They just manifest in a very, very different way, a very different story, but they all root down to shame, rejection, or neglect. And then from there, it's like, okay, how can we actually like build a community and provide love and support to one another and start bringing awareness to these things that we've tried to just bury or dust off for years. So, and again, that's what I try to do. Like even in my social media posts, like go and read through some of my stuff, like on Facebook, on LinkedIn. I'm a person, I wear like heart on my sleeve over here and just very authentic and just, you know, because I think that's sometimes it's what people need to hear.
Right.
They're like, dang, I resonate with this. Like, you know, talk about like a high achieving, like perfectionism type A, like the struggles that come with that, the unhealthy things. There are healthy parts of it, but there are very unhealthy dark sides. And people like, I remember I posted on Facebook and there was like, 70 people or so liked it. And they're like, oh my gosh, this resonates with me. Oh my gosh.
This happened to me too.
I get, And it's like, why don't we talk more about that? Like,
we
good,
should.
bad, and ugly. Let's connect on that. Like everything, like highs and lows, ride or dies. And I think we need to
one of my guests,
in our society.
Sort of like taught me like there is no, like, okay, I'm done and everything's perfect and it's always a party.
Right.
That does not exist.
No, it doesn't.
People lie about it and say it does, but it's not true. Yes.
Right. Yeah. There's a lot of underlying layers and stories, but there are moments where it is like you truly can be abundant and joyful. And I think that's one of the things I love teaching people is like, despite the low in your life, how can you change it to a more positive thinking mindset so that you find the abundance and the grace even when life gets hard. And then that way, like when life is great, because there are, we talk about like mysteries and stuff, like mysteries of the rosary, like joyful mysteries, right? Like there are glories, there are joyful times. And like, then we can just like really, really bask in just like the light and the love and just all this kind of stuff. But then also how can we have a positive mindset and how can we unlock the confidence and joy that's already within ourselves, despite pains and struggles and
that
hurt.
No matter what, self-acceptance. It's almost like that. No matter what.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And it's like, life is hard, but also life is beautiful. Totally. Life is really beautiful. And this is really the only time in our lives where we can, we struggle, right? Because like, if we talk about eternity, like we don't know live forever with no pain, we don't.
You're not going to learn much. Right.
And this is where we're really like prepping and learning our faith, like our hope, like just like understanding and loving ourselves and others. Like this is the time to learn. And I think, again, a lot of it is all perception. People say life is hard. Oh my gosh, I'm struggling. Right. That's a mindset. That's a mindset where it's like, there are hard things in life, but
life is always a struggle. Right. But you can get, don't carry it around like it's a badge of honor. Leave me alone. I'm struggling. Right. Leave me alone. I'm sad. Right. You're just using it as an excuse not to get off your ass and fix it.
Right. Exactly.
Sorry. That's a little blunt.
But it's like, it's also too like a struggle. It's like, I think sometimes people see it as such a bad thing of like, oh, this is a hard time of my life. I'm like, no, a struggle is actually a great opportunity for you to learn and to be refined. With it, they say like diamonds are made in pressure and heat. Those that's the pressure and heat to refine you so that you can be like that brightest gem. And it's how do you look at that situation as like, this is a great lesson. Like this is beautiful, right? So I think it's a whole paradigm shift in that too. Because people just say, oh, life is hard. Like, woe is me. I'm like, no, like, you can think that way, but is that really serving you and others around you? Are you giving off negative energy? Like what kind of energy are you giving off for yourself and others? It's like it could be very self-deprecating also. So,
totally. Anna, Chippa, it's almost 11 o'clock. Chippa.
I know.
I want to say
I know.
Chippa,
I'm like,
Chippa.
Where did this go? I'm like,
so you're going to go ahead and book a show like immediately, but wait a little while. Yeah. So we should have a part 2 as soon as you want. Because we didn't get to talk about any of my notes. It was just too fun.
I know. Like I said in the beginning, like I'm all about tangents. Like tangents,
I love
tangents.
Tangents.
I love tangents.
Yes. It's going to make my show notes more difficult, but that's okay.
Yes.
So say your summersolsticecoach.com. And if you want to drop any more handles, I want to make sure you're on time for your call.
Cool.
Go for it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I will make sure to send that over to you and whatnot.
Okay. So summersolsticecoach.com. All right. I'm going to let you go. Thank you, Anna, for hanging out with me. Let's do it again soon.
Awesome. Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Yep. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks for taking the time to ride along with us on another episode of Vroom Vroom Veer. For podcast info and show notes, be sure to head over to vvveer.com. That's VVER.com. Man, that's fun to say. And we'll catch up with you next time here on Vroom Vroom Veer.